Hey guys, welcome back to Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers and sex workers and all naked people in between. Today we have a brand new freaking episode featuring Keira Kova. Keira Kova, who's joining us today. We're going to be talking about spirituality. We're going to be talking a lot about her personal life too, and how that led to her stripping career for this baby stripper. So, Keira, let's say hello to the audience.
Hi, guys.
Let's just dive right into it. So, can you define what you do, who you are?
Okay, so my name is Keira, and I am, I guess, technically still a baby stripper. I started dancing back in April 2018, and I started over at the Paramount.
Yeah, that's
the starting spot.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's kind of my hood in New West.
Okay.
So I started there, and I was there for about a year, and at that point I just kind of wasn't like evolving anymore as a dancer, so I just kind of left.
Just left.
I just kind of been floating around and plotting my next move, but I'm just kind of working on my skills, but I'm still very excited to be part of this industry and moving forward. And
yay! And then now I think you said you were VIPing at the Penthouse.
Yes, the Penthouse.
Yay, which is great. It's usually my home club,
that's where I saw you.
Oh, there you go! Oh, really? Yay! Oh my god, that's so awesome!
So inspirational.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I had you guys have heard it many times on the podcast, but I had an interesting start. But I'm not going to talk about myself on today's episode because it's all about you. So what do you want to get into? I feel like you sent me a lot of notes, which no one usually does, but this is really great because it gives me so much ground to work with. So I guess did you want to start off with relationships or your story, how you got started? I mean, that's all part of your story. So
yeah, I guess, I'm coming from a bit of a different background in that, like, I'm also older. So I just turned 30.
Oh my gosh, you look like a oh my god, no way.
So yeah,
everyone thought you were 19. Thanks.
So like, I'm an older baby stripper, and I had like never been into a strip club at all, and I was like, I'm ashamed to say this now, but I was so against them. And I remember like planning my wedding, like I was engaged. I met a guy like after high school when I was like just turning 20, and we fell in love. We were together for like almost 8 years, and we broke up. Wow. And we didn't have like the cleanest of breakups. Like we were still friends and stuff, but that's like continued for a couple of years.
As it always says, hey, don't be ashamed. That's just being human.
Just during that time of us breaking up is when I fell into like pole dancing, and I was in a really dark place. I needed a hobby, and it just was something so different that I'd never done. Like it had a background in fitness.
Right.
So it wasn't like totally off, like I was taking a new fitness class, but I didn't think that I could be like sexy.
Yeah. And guys, like pole dancing is not always like a sexy approach to it. There is definitely like the more athletic side
and that's
to it
what
as
I was.
well.
That's where I was at first. Like,
yeah,
I was
especially like with
all
your
these girls like flipping around on the pole, and it was like more gymnastics. It wasn't super sexy.
That's not your area.
I was not trying to be sexy when I started.
Right, and especially with like your judgments already on how you be strip clubs and how you be strippers.
When I was planning my wedding, like, and it came down to like my fiance's like bachelor party, I was furious if there was like gonna be strippers. I told my maid of honor, I was like, we have two plans. Like, one if he behaves, two if he like doesn't. And I was just like so worried that these women were something that I could never be, or that like they had something to offer.
Yeah, I want to ask about that. Right. Yeah. So like, where do you think that stems from?
Just
in
like
terms
insecurity,
of,
like
right.
just not thinking that I could be sexy, I guess.
Because, like, what did you think of strippers before, I guess? Did you think, because a lot of people, and, like, this is just everyone in general, will be like, oh, strippers are hoes, they're going to steal your man, they're going to, like, cheat on your husband and all stuff.
Basically,
like,
I thought it was, like, they were just, like, these lures, and I, like, use vulgar terms, and, like...
No, totally.
But, yeah, it was coming from, obviously, a huge place of
insecurity, right? So after, I guess and then now what? I know, full 180 later. And that's not uncommon, guys. Like, I feel like a lot of people have these preconceived notions of what strippers are, what they should be, or what they should do. And this is why this podcast exists, so we can eliminate those type of biases and those type of judgments, because one, it's unhealthy. Two, I mean, no, we don't do shit like that. I mean, maybe some people do, but there's always bad apples in every kind of, bag, you know what I mean? But, like, we're just normal people. It's a job. That's what we do. Sorry, we get naked. And yes, it's our job to look hot. So, and take your money. So, but anyways, we'll get back to your story. So,
where were we?
Bachelor parties and, like,
so just,
your attitudes towards
So I just had,
stripping.
a very negative attitude, but I started pole dancing.
For fitness.
It was just, like, it was January, New Year, new me.
Yeah, New Year's resolutions. That's coming
and
up
I
soon.
actually did a private lesson because I was too scared to go into a class and try and, like, dance in heels and look hot, because I was just like, I'm gonna look so awkward.
Yeah,
and I did.
Or you feel stupid too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And just, like, I was just hooked. Like, from fitness, I love being, like, upside down. I love, like, using my entire body and just that, like, adrenaline rush you get. And it was just, like, amplified by 100 when you were on the pole. And so it was just, like, kind of like the first thing in a long time where I'm like, this is my thing. Like, I'm doing this, like, 3 times a week. I told my boss, I was like, I'm leaving work between this and this time so I can make it.
I'm not available. I have plans. And it involves a pole. So, like, what was it about pole dancing that drew you to the sport?
I guess, just, like, the being dizzy, the, like, using your whole body, the fact that it was, like, for, like, at the beginning, it was easy to, like, progress through things, because it was, like, muscle memory, and you just keep practicing, and then all of a sudden, like, you land something, and it would just, like, feel so good.
So good.
And I just felt like it was this area where all these insecure parts of me were able to kind of, like, flourish. Like, I could pick out, like, the outfit that made me feel sexy, and it didn't matter if it looked trashy or if it didn't go together, if it didn't match. Like, it was just whatever. Yeah. Or you could pick, like, whatever, like, the music that, like, people made fun of you for listening to in high school. Like, you
definitely
could,
dance
like,
to weird things.
Yeah, like, you could, like, dance to that, and it just finding kind of all these pieces of myself that I had shoved down.
Yeah.
And letting it come out and thrive. And it just, like, kept feeding into that. And so when I started to kind of look at more of, like, the sexier, like, pole dancing videos, I think the first, like, person that caught my attention was Olga Koda.
Yes, she's amazing.
Like, I was just like,
she's a babe. She's a Russian, like, dancer, guys.
Drooling.
She's crazy.
And I was just like, I want to be that. And I remember, like I'd show like, videos and stuff, or tell, like, kind of my pole instructor what I was into, and I just, like, with the idea of, like, how could I ever be like that, and I just remember the way she said it one time. She's like, it's just about, like, being confident when you're on the pole. And I realized, like, you know, when you start to have those moments where you, like, snap into a combo and something that, like, takes over you, and you're like, what? Like,
it feels so good.
Even just, like, I still record every practice.
Yep.
And you have those moments where sometimes you're watching things and you're like, ew, oh my god, like, what am I doing? But then you have these other moments where you're like, holy shit, that's me. Like, that's my body. Like, that's what I look like. Like,
it's definitely very empowering, and also just amazing what the human body can do in this sport. So, yeah, I'm totally 100% with you. And it's good that you had, like, a goal for, like, someone that you want to look up to as well. I think that's super important. And also filming your progress. I look at my old videos from, like, 3 years ago when I started. I'm like, what the fuck? But it's so necessary, though, too.
And I got into that habit, like, in fitness, just because I like learning exercises and stuff and trying to make sure that I was doing them right.
Correctly, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Just, like, check form. But, yeah, it's always, like, it's exciting to go back and be like, what?
What kind of fitness background did you have before? Because you mentioned your fitness career.
Yeah, so I kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. Like, I started with personal training, and then like, into, like, group fitness. And then in my last role, I was kind of doing a lot more, like, on the administrative side of, like, gym stuff.
Yeah, perfect. That's awesome. Are you still doing that as well?
I'm studying to upgrade my credentials for the new year, but I'm not currently in a fitness facility.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. It's whatever, right? As long as you're updating the education, that's great. I think we mentioned this before we started recording, but was this during the time, or was this before the time that you developed an eating disorder?
I mean, I guess like the eating disorders kind of like resurfaced at different times, but I guess when I was at my worst would have been like years ago, like before my 20s, like as I was meeting my ex.
Right.
And I had been in the hospital, and their kind of treatment plan for me, like in my recovery for eating disorder, was to just take medication. And when I was in the hospital, like I was not allowed to do like any form of exercise. Like, at one point we had like group therapy sessions that we needed to do, and at one point like they were doing yoga, and I wasn't allowed to go because it was like
you can do
active.
anything physical, even yoga.
I was like, you don't think like I could have used it. So after that, like they just put me on a bunch of pills, and I gained a bunch of weight. That was like the pills made me eat a lot.
Right.
And it wasn't until I started going to the gym and like using the like weights. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like using all of these muscles, and it just really snapped something in my head where like when I left the gym, I wasn't like I'm hungry, and the voice that would be like, oh, but you shouldn't eat, like it was just like you need to eat, like and I noticed if I didn't fuel myself properly, like I wasn't, because I'd watch my weights go up at the gym, and then all of a sudden like I'd feel really weak, and I'd be like, oh, like I need to like
you need some nutrients.
I need to fuel. And it was just
exactly.
This switch had flipped, and I just I was like, okay, I just dropped out of beauty school. It was in a dark
just trying to
place,
figure things,
so I was
figuring
just like,
things out.
I'm just gonna make it my job so that like I can continue to like have it be a focused part of my life
and be healthy too, because eating is so important. What kind of eating disorder did you have, if you don't mind me asking?
I was anorexic.
Anorexic, yeah. And that's really hard to do too. I feel like some girls that I know that have been in the industry have suffered from eating disorders in the past. And I think because of, they're so self-conscious about their self-image, because we have to be naked, it's part of our job, like that can really affect them. Did you have like a lot of problems before in terms of was it more like confidence with your body, your self-image, or pressures from society, or a mix of everything?
I think like I was so young when I started with like my anorexia, and I think I grew up with a family, like most of my family was like overweight. So my mom and my sister grew up like, I just grew up with them saying I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat. So I just grew up with that mentality.
Right.
And just like as, like puberty came around and like girls started getting curves and stuff, I hadn't really filled out in the same way, and everybody like around me was I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, and I'm like, well, like now I'm fat too, and it just like
gets ingrained in your mind.
It just got ingrained, and without really too much effort, I remember I was like, okay, I need to look skinnier. Right. And I just like without really doing anything, I lost a bunch of weight, and when I like got good feedback from that, it started to like feed in, and then I kind of like realized that it was kind of like a more of a lifestyle, like with dieting and stuff. So I was always chasing like, oh, like what can I do?
Right.
What can I do? And I'd say like with fitness, like it did help me get like a healthier relationship with my body, but there's definitely been points in the industry where it's also given me like negative issues as well.
Totally. That's really hard to do, because I feel like eating disorders happen a lot when you're younger, especially to females. Of course it does happen to males as well, but I feel it's because as you said, you're just hearing all these things, I'm fat, and
and your body is like growing and changing in like weird
and
ways,
so rapidly
and,
too. And it almost feels like, well, I can be in control of my body. It's one of those things I can control during that time. But then sometimes it can just go awry, I guess. And then that's probably what happened in your case as well.
And then it just clung on to like having, because I didn't really have a lot of hobbies at that time. Like I grew up without a lot of money, so it's like if I wasn't interested in continuing a hobby, like my parents would always try, if I wanted to do something, that like they would scramble to make it happen. But the second I was like, oh, that's hard, I want to quit, they were like, you need to stick with it. They were like, oh, thank God, okay. So it was just like all of a sudden it was something I had that was taking up like most of my time, and like I thought I was getting a reward from it.
Right.
And it was just something that I was really like controlling, when I guess you know, when you're young, you don't have control over most of what's happening.
Right. What was the tipping point, I guess? Like, how did you end up in the hospital?
I guess it's just like I guess it correlated with, like, I partied a lot at one point. So I think just like...
We all did.
Yeah. So I think just like I think it amplified my depression a lot, and I just got to this point where I was breaking down.
And just in a dark place.
Like, I actually, like, when I went to the hospital, like, willingly, like,
good.
over, like, the depression. And when I agreed to stay, they were like, okay, like, you're... like a willing participant in this, and I was like free to go whenever. And a couple days later, they're like, "No, you can't leave," because they had decided that my eating disorder was more of a problem than I had thought.
Wow, that's so crazy. Oh my gosh, how did you find yourself getting out of that? Because I know you mentioned a little bit about spirituality there. How did you discover that?
It's kind of a weird story.
Weird stories are totally okay.
When, right after my separation, like, I had an office in the gym that I worked at, and one of my coworkers brought in a DVD for me, and they're just like, I just want you to have an open mind. It sounds really cheesy, but just please watch it. Like, I think it'll really help you.
Right.
And I left this on my desk, and everybody for the whole day came in and was like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's my, like, self-help DVD. I'll give it to me, don't worry. And, like, I just made jokes about it all day, and I just, like, humored him, and I put it in, and literally it wasn't even on for 5 minutes, and I started bawling my eyes out. And I think it was called, like, The Hero's Journey.
Okay.
And it's about, like, a philosopher named, like, Joseph Campbell, and kind of his, like, theory on how all stories are the same.
Oh.
And they follow this same, like, hero's journey. And it's just, like, there's a separation from you and your environment or your current situation, and you have to, like, encounter all these steps of growth and, like, meeting your mentor, like, finding your skills, honing them, and then, like, fighting your dragon, getting the goblet, and then, like, returning. And it was just, like, they showed in different stories how it all kind of matched up. And I don't know what hit me. I just, like, it was a long documentary, too, and I cried. Like, I, like, so much. But all of it was, like, these people, there was like actors, and like Tony Hawk was in it, and they're just like all talking about these moments where they did something that was so out there and so like against what other people thought was right for them, against what they had been doing, and it usually came out of a dark place that they'd been in.
Right. And
it just stuck with me, and I kind of like, I took that and was like, yes, like, I'm on this spiritual journey, like, this is what's happening, and kind of went from there.
Okay,
and so just when I started, like, pole dancing, right away, like everybody in my life, like, I went to pole class, people were like, oh, you're gonna become a stripper now?
Why does everyone say that?
I know, like,
coming from a jokey place, it's like sometimes it's half jokey.
Well, that's the thing, like, they all said it, and then when I actually did, they're like, yeah, we knew you were.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like,
it's like, is that a compliment? Thanks.
So that was just like, and at first I was like, no, never, like, no.
Yeah.
And then just like the more, like, I was just in a rough place with my career at the time, and just with deciding what my next chapter was. And I just, you know, as I'm watching all these like spiritual things, they're talking about like signs, and now I realize now, like, all these problems I was having with my job was like the universe saying, you need to like leave this job, get out.
Yeah, it's so true.
And I just had to do it in the most dramatic way possible.
Oh my God. What did you do?
I left to become a stripper.
Yeah, there we go. Total like 180.
Just like, yeah, as I mentioned, in a lot of ways, just the way my career was at the time, like, I feel more in control of my life and myself now.
That's good. Finally in control.
Despite that I have like no like certainty of like anything, but I feel more secure.
What was the general timeline for most of this happening in your life?
Okay, so it's so weird because we're doing this now because it's like December right before Christmas. So that is when my ex and I started dating.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
when we got engaged. That's when we broke up.
Oh my god!
And then in January of a couple years ago is when I started pole.
Oh wow!
So it would have been January 2018 that I started pole, and then like by April I left. I didn't leave my job right away, but I started stripping.
Okay.
I did both for a little while.
Yeah. And was that hard for you to do? That like kind of moonlighting? I'm sure people probably didn't know that you were doing that. Or was that something you were keeping hush-hush?
Like a few people knew, yes. I was just really grateful because as I was like building up to this decision, my biggest fear was like, how do I like make the jump? Because it seemed like some places wanted you like to be fully available, and I was like, what if I don't like it and I'm like leaving this job behind? So I was fortunate enough in a situation where they were like, well, just work when you can, and so see if it's something that you want to do.
That's a good way to transition into it too, because you mentioned before you'd actually never even been to a strip club.
I'd never been into a strip club.
So, okay, what the fuck? So, like, okay, so, like, what were your expectations going into it? You know, how did you react when you actually finally went? Like, how did you feel? Do you remember that? It wasn't that long ago.
I know. I don't know what I really thought happened in there. Like, and don't get me wrong, I've seen some amazing shit happen in strip clubs. But, like, I don't know. I just thought, like, I don't know. And I still, like, I don't know. I couldn't wrap my head around how, like, everyone got their, like, costumes off, like, while they were dancing.
And art.
Just, like, and I was also, like, at this point, I'd watched all these, like, competition videos. And I've seen some girls go, like, balls hard, like, trick on stage. Totally. But, like, not quite like those videos, which is why, like, I mentioned, you know, like, to my instructor at one point, like, and she just looked at me. She's like, "You've never been to a club, have you?" She's like,
wildly different, my friend.
But yeah, no. So I don't really know what I thought was happening in there, but I was definitely scared to go in. And when I first like decided, like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I remember I texted like a couple of my friends, being like, "Okay, will you come with me?"
Aww.
And then when I knew that I wanted to become a stripper, I like gotten this tidbit of advice that said, if you're thinking about working in a club, go alone. And I was like, if you can't go through the front doors alone, then how are you going to get on stage? And I was like, oh, snap.
That's so true, though. So
and
true.
So I was like, okay, like, I'm not going to go with you. And I just, like, in my heart, like, I was like, I am going here to try and find a job. And I was literally not even there for 10 minutes before some girl came up to me and was like, oh, are you here with your boyfriend? And I was like, no. And she's like, are you looking for a job? And I was just like, I fumbled. I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, well, kind of yes. But I don't want to, like, I don't be just like, yes.
Yeah. It's hard for you to own that right away.
And she was so nice about it. She pulled a seat, I bought her a drink, and she just gave me the lowdown. And she's like, yeah, like, we're hiring. I was like, I'll go get you the number.
How did that work because you started at Paramount, right,
yes.
in the West? How did that audition process work? Or, like, how did you get started?
Yeah, so I just, like, she gave me a number, and I texted, like, the manager.
This
like,
is normal, guys.
Yeah. And she arranged to meet with me, and I was fortunate I got there. There was another girl meeting us, and I got there just a bit earlier, and it was, like, I don't know, we just connected about a lot of things. She gave me a lot of advice. I explained, like, my background in fitness. She's, like, into fitness, too, so she was super supportive.
Yay.
And just kind of was super real and was like, yeah, you need to, like, take care of yourself and, like, blah, blah, like, the kind of rundown. Gave me, like, all the rules and stuff. And I had already been doing pole, but, like, they, like, they take on girls with, like, no experience.
Yeah.
So she did, like, a few, like, pole lessons. She, like, I would just go there for, like, I went there for a couple weeks, like, I would leave my job at the gym. I was like, I have an appointment. And I would go to the strip club, and I would get this lesson from her.
That's awesome.
And then I would go back to the office.
Oh my god! It's like in the middle of the day.
One time I was, like, in the club, and, like, she gave me a lap dance, and I, like, never, like, I was so nervous. I had no idea what to expect. And she's, like, hot, huge tits, like, and then all of a sudden I'm just, like, back in the gym, like what?
What just happened?
Like, I put it, and then it's like part of me just, like, felt like, what? Like, I want to go back.
That's a good sign. Okay, yeah, because I know with Paramount it's a bit different there. So, guys, if you have never been there, guys, it's a club in New Westminster. A smaller kind of stage, I guess, there. A small pole, and there's no alcohol that's served there. Is that still the same?
That is still the...
Holy crap.
Yeah.
The boggles my mind, but...
It's different.
Amazing. And I know, like, you're watching videos online of competitions, and you've maybe now seen a couple girls on stage too. Do you think there's a big difference between pole competitions and stage dance? Like stripper style, like in an actual club?
Well, it depends what competition you're looking at, because I've been watching a lot of the exotic competitions.
Oh, okay.
now. But yeah, at the time, like, for the videos I was watching to what I was seeing, like, on stage, and I just started following, like, I made my stripper, like, Instagram before I was a stripper. Like, I was just, like, started committing to this, like, personality and life that I kind of, like, was planning. And so I just followed a bunch of girls. I, like, messaged a bunch of dancers.
That's
like,
awesome.
Hey, like, do you have any, like, advice? Like,
that's awesome.
When I showed up to the Paramount to, like, work, like, a bunch of girls they're like, oh, like, we've seen you on Instagram. Like, are you ready to dance? I'm like, no. Just branding.
That's hilarious.
So it just kind of, I don't know, I just realized I would have to slow down more. That was, like, hard for me.
Yeah, because I find, you know, with new dancers, and I've said this on the show before, we usually tend to dance really fast. But when you're doing that, you don't allow the audience to really, like, see and digest all the movements.
I tend to lean towards that Russian exotic style, too. So it is quicker.
And it's fast.
But, like, if you do it right, you can, like, slow down. But it's the art of knowing that balance.
Yeah, it's and there is a balance. So that's really interesting. I love how you're an older stripper as well. I'm the same age as you, 30.
Oh, that's awesome. You look so young. Like,
thank you. It's Asian genes. But I had a similar journey too, but, like, working corporate and stuff too, and I started later as well, which I think is actually, to me, this is my opinion, I think is pretty wise. Because I know a lot of strippers that started when they're younger too, but then I feel it could be kind of dangerous in terms of, like, distorting like how you view men and how you treat money and how you treat people, and I don't know, it's almost too young. Like, you haven't lived life yet. You don't have any experience.
Totally agree. And I was so worried when I, like, first started dancing. I was like, oh, I'm too old for this. Like, or I'm, like, starting too late. And, like, some of, like, the best dancers I've seen are, like, my age. And I'm like, hell yeah, I've still got time.
You know what? I wonder if that's a trend, though, too, because, like, I know a few people have started around this age as well, like 30s or, like, late 20s, which, to me, and for a lot of people, like, that's, like, grandma age, like, really old. And because we do have an expiry date, right? Like, it's based on your looks, right? It's based on your body. It's very physical. But, like, I'm finding and I'm seeing that a lot of people are starting to do that now. I don't know, like, if that's just, like, a side hustle kind of thing. Like, what I'm doing, I would do it very, very part-time. I rarely do more than once every couple months because, like, working a corporate job and doing a full week at the Penthouse is freaking tiring. Like, I don't really enjoy having 4 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah,
you know? But, like, it's interesting because I've known, like, at least a good handful, maybe even up to 10 girls that are starting later in life. Because I feel like, I don't know, it's a great form of money and it's a great industry to be in, and why the hell not kind of mentality.
I totally, it is way more common than I first thought.
Yeah, have you met other girls too in the same
regard? Maybe not necessarily that I've all, like, started older, but ones that have just been in, like, the industry for a while and are still doing it, still going strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's been, like, a few, like, older ones just getting into it that, like,
I don't know, I just think it's smarter. For me, I really am a firm believer of starting later, and that is not just only limited to stripping, but, like, I used to be a sugar baby, and I started that, like, a little bit later too. Like,
I thought my time for that had passed.
No, right? Seriously, there's a niche for everything. But, like, I mean, I always say before in interviews and stuff, like, oh, I wish I could have started sugaring when I was, like, younger in university. But at the same time, I would be so different and probably so jaded and probably would have taken advantage of.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been mentally able to handle it if I'd started younger.
Totally.
And I feel like, personally, like, my career in, like, fitness, I feel like, I don't know, everything was so transferable, like, to
sales.
Like, sales.
It's totally sales
like,
job.
Working in your body. Like, but also for me, like, my, like, background like my personal background is in personal training. I kind of like did group fitness because I was like thrown into it. That is not a comfortable area for me. Like the first class I ever taught was because an instructor called in an hour before.
Oh no.
He also had like 100 people that regularly attended his class.
Oh,
and
God.
I believe about 80 stayed for me.
Oh God.
And just
That's
like
terrifying.
I blacked most of it out. Like I remember like the first like few moments like looking out there and seeing all these people like copy me for the warm up, and then just
good
like,
God,
blacked everything out. And so just like I don't know, that job like I was constantly just thrown into the fire. So when it came down to like getting naked in front of people, I was like, oh, like that's all I have to do. I don't have to like I don't have to plan a yoga class. I don't have to like I don't have to teach a step class. Like,
so was that easier for you then? Like the first time you ever stripped, you're like, okay, got this.
I was just kind of like,
wow. Nothing compares to teaching 100 people. Like,
I don't know. I guess it was just because I had just built myself up to believe that like it really didn't matter what happened like on that stage. Like if I fell, like shake my butt, get naked, like that's just what I'm there for. Like
it's an easy job. Can't really
I didn't fall, thank you.
Yay.
Thank goodness. But I guess I just felt like the expectation, like, and don't get me, no, I'm not saying it's not work, like it is, and like
and it
like,
definitely is, guys.
it just I don't know, like, what stepping in, especially if you're subbing somebody's, like, fitness class. I mean, do you teach at Tantra?
I teach at Tantra,
yeah. So, you know, like, when they're like, oh, well, what are you going to be doing?
Yeah, I know. And it's like, hey,
and,
like
they're ready to leave because you're not, like...
I luckily had no one ever leave my class, thank God. But when you're subbing in for someone, they have that expectation.
And sometimes it would be, like... because like the instructor didn't show up. So I remember one time I was having a yoga class and I walked in and it's like the class has already started. The instructor's not there. We tried to figure out and I'm just walking in like I have no plan. Like I'm going to be leading a class, but I'm pretty much gonna be making it up on the spot. And this one woman's just like, but what are you gonna be doing? And I'm just like,
oh my God. It's like,
I don't know.
You're lucky I'm here.
Like, I don't know. And it's just I don't know. I just feel like the expectations, like they just want like you can mess up, don't get me wrong.
You can.
But, like, you just, good energy, like, flow, like, go with your music, like...
Yeah, because, like, when you're dancing on stage, it's not like you have, well, I don't know, some girls have, like, a little routine that they like to do. For me, I like to freestyle everything because I have a huge repertoire, you know? But, like, when I first started, actually, when I did amateur night, my very first time ever stripping, but, like, amateur night at the Granville Strip, I did that, I just did not know what the fuck to do. I just started pole dancing like 2 or maybe 3 months prior. Kept doing the same fucking tilt-a-whirl, like the same fucking spin. So like I'm so nervous. I was so scared. I don't know. It's different now. I had completely different expectations going into it, and it's like okay, it's easy. You just take off your clothes, but a lot of it's mental. Right?
oh yeah, a lot of it. And I actually remember like the first time I went to Tantra to do open pole practice after I started stripping, and it was the best practice I'd ever had.
Oh, good.
Before leading up to it, I remember like when I first was like, okay, can I do this? And I like got this like how long I was gonna have to dance at the Paramount. It was just 10 minutes. But like, and I like the first time I hit that pole to like my 10-minute like performance, and I just like did everything all at once, and I was so gassed and so tired, and I was like, how am I gonna do it? And then after when I went there, I was like, oh, okay, like I gotta like slow it down. Okay, like I can just sit there a little bit and like, be flirty for a little bit, like catch your breath a little bit. And just like I remember that first practice I went, like I just felt like my first like shift, I just felt like a whole other woman when I woke up. I was like so like nothing was gonna bring me down. I was on top of the world. It's like I can do anything.
It's like a high.
And I do like I feel like I don't know, what's the scariest thing you could like have to do in front of people? It's like get naked and literally like bend over and show your bare ass. And,
yeah, it's very vulnerable.
And looked hot while doing it. So like I feel like I can do anything.
You feel like you could conquer anything because you've done that. Yeah, totally. I get that. It's a very vulnerable thing, you know, stripping. It's an intimate thing. It's also like there's lots of showmanship that comes along with it. It's lots of, you know, physical strength that comes with it. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. It's It's a hard job, guys. I know that sometimes it sounds like on this podcast we might be glamorizing it, but really it is hard work, you know, and especially like if you want to be a really great performer, it takes all those things and more, right? So...
Which I think was, like, another, like, I guess, like, you know, overcoming, like, that stigma of, like, hey, I just quit my job to become a stripper, and, like, hey, I was engaged, but now I'm a stripper. Like,
all the things.
People, like, hear that and assume, like, oh, my gosh, she's gone off the deep end.
Right.
Like, she's on the drugs. Like,
I almost think that.
And it's just, like, I was... You know, like, I was working in fitness. I saw it as, like, an athletic decision I was making. I was just like, I want to make money dancing.
Totally.
And, like, if I'm going to be flinging my body around this pole, like, getting sore, let's make some money doing it.
Totally.
But, yeah, like, I don't know. I just came at it from, like, an athlete perspective.
Yeah.
And just,
totally.
like, it does need that, like, level of, like, recovery and even, like the emotional and spiritual side of it. Like, you need the, like, recovery for that as well. Which is fortunate, like, you know, where we're able to kind of make our schedule and take time off because sometimes you really need it.
Your body needs to recover and recuperate, right? I know you've been stressing, like, hey, I came from this from an athletic point of view because of your preconceived notions with stripping. How has your mind changed now that you are fully in it? Has it changed? I hope it's changed. God.
Yeah, no, I still try to, like, I try to approach my training, like, my pole training and, like, my care for my body and, like, as an athlete, quote.
Yeah, no, it is.
Like,
totally.
you know, like, I try to, like, make sure, like, I foam roll or stretch, like, every day to make sure that I'm still able to move.
No, totally.
Because I am older, so, like, even just, like, a night of, like, VIPing, like, I feel like a truck hit me sometimes.
It's very, very tiring, especially in the legs. But how about, like, your attitudes, like, towards stripping and stripping culture? Like, do you still share the same kind of notions in terms of, like, super judgy or, like, how has that changed?
Like,
and what changed things for you?
I mean, I guess, like, I knew, like, when I decided I was going to become a stripper, like, one, I'd put this energy out into the universe that strippers are bad and that they're gross and, like, no.
Yeah.
So I knew that, like, karma, I was going to have to deal with some of, like, negative energy. And I didn't know if that was going to come from, like, girls themselves or people in my life, which I found that to be it's more, like, people that I think are close to me that I've gotten the most negative, like, judgments. Like, I've been fortunate that all of the girls that I've met in my career
They've been amazing.
Like, everyone's been amazing. Like,
yeah.
And that was just, like, coming into it and just being, like, welcomed even by, like, the woman I met first at the Paramount, like, getting her energy and having, like, that kind of, like, reassurance, like,
totally
try it out, see if you like it. Like, she introduced me to the girls. Everyone was just super nice.
Yeah.
And, like, once you're there and you're in it and you're doing it and, like, you're surrounded by all of these, like, positive women who are also, like, very, like, you know, like-minded. Like, a lot of girls are, like, spiritual. A lot of them have, like, been through, like, eating disorders. It's just a lot of, like, you know,
there's a lot of stories.
And,
yeah.
like,
lots of similarities
different
as well.
ways. And especially at the Paramount because everybody, like, works there all of the time. So it's just, like, you're with the same girls, like, every day almost.
They kind of, like, become your sisters a little bit, right?
and that was just, like, to be among them, and so to have gone from, like, standing outside the strip club being so scared of what was in there and how I could never compare or, like, be that, and to all of a sudden be, like, one of them and amongst them and accepted by them was very liberating. And I guess, like, for me, that's the biggest takeaway is just the acceptance from the women, not really the validation from the men. Like,
right.
I don't know, I've put myself in a position where I don't really, like, let what the men say, like, affect me. Like, I've never been super flattered by, like, a compliment a guy's given me in the club, but I've also never been super, like, hurt.
Offended or anything.
Whereas, like, when, like one of the girls compliments me, I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like,
that's so nice. So that's really cool. It's so nice for you to share that too, because I don't know, like, you were talking about, like, standing outside the club and, like, you know, having this bad energy about, you know, what you think strippers are and whatnot. And I think, like, a lot of that comes, well, I guess sometimes, from insecurity, but just overall, like, miseducation about it, and having society tell us, hey, this is how, you know, strippers have always been. but, like, you know, historically and in movies and stuff too. Yes. And it's just, are we still really thinking like that, guys? It's 2020 now and this is going to be out, but like, why are we still having those kind of attitudes, and why haven't those attitudes changed, right? But yeah, that's the basis for this podcast, guys. Why we're having conversations and discussion like this. But I guess with that, why don't we go into some Q&A, since we got some great questions here. I know it was super last minute when I threw this out, but we have a couple things here. So first question being, how has your perception of men changed since you started dancing?
Gosh.
Be honest.
I guess it's pretty negative.
You can be negative, you can be whatever.
But I mean, in a like, I don't know, it really opened my eyes, I guess, to a different side of men. And not that I wasn't completely like clueless and I didn't know it existed. I didn't realize how weird or sexual some guys were. And I don't mean that
elaborate. What do you mean by that? Don't be shy, please.
I just feel like you, in like the terms of dating, I feel like you could know someone for months and like be talking to them and getting to know them, but you don't truly know how that person is until he's got a naked stranger on top of him. And that's just like, I don't know. I guess that's part of it.
Okay.
But I guess also like in terms, this is a hard question to answer.
No, that's good. Like, has it been good or bad? Like, I don't know. I guess every dancer has different experiences, from men to club and like men, dating life and male callings.
I guess it's just like and also just because my breakup's been like wonky, and I've been in such a weird place, so I haven't really been dating, and I haven't like really been like trying to date, but I'm also just kind of like burnt out, like the idea of like going on like Tinder and like talking to all I'm like, that's what I do for work. I have these like boring flirty conversations like go like nowhere.
It's exhausting.
I don't like, on my time off, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, because it's like a job. It's like an interview.
Gonna be like, oh, send me something. I'm like, well, like,
no,
I usually get paid for that. Like,
yeah.
I
guess that's kind of like where this
and that's just,
coming
I think,
from.
what the expectations are like these days. I mean, I feel like I painted this idea that I think of men super negatively. I don't. I just, in my personal life, I only have the energy for genuine people, and a lot of that is like, I've been in like relationships with jerks before. My ex was not a jerk. He was a very like respectful, genuine person, and so just my takeaway from that like relationship is that I shouldn't have to settle for anything less than that energy.
Totally.
And just, you see so much of bad energy at the club that it's just really reinstated. Like, what
kind of bad energy though are you seeing?
Just like
what do you mean? Can you elaborate?
I mean, it's 50-50, because I'm also non-judgmental if you're buying dances from me and like you want to express like some weird desire you have, like sure, like just give me your money, like I'm honestly not judging you, but like sometimes like the things you hear like what?
Like what have you heard? I've heard a lot of interesting shit, especially on this podcast.
Or even just like I guess because just the act of like being in the club, like you're a dancer, so they're automatically just a little more like vulnerable, like just people coming up like trying to solicit you.
Yeah,
there's a big one.
Get that all the time. Like, so how much?
Yeah, like you'll be at work. Like, I just spent like anywhere between an hour to 3 hours getting ready for work, here to make money. But yes, I want to leave with you right now.
It's a weird expectation, right? Like, people just think like we're all hoes, and I mean hoes in terms of like they expect us to give sex freely.
Yeah, and I guess that's my like biggest surprise too, is what guys like think
is acceptable.
Like, they'll be like, oh, like, you come back to our place for $100. I'm like, what?
Excuse me, are you mistaken? But what the fuck did you just say to me? Like, no.
I remember one guy, I can't remember what he said. I think he it was like $30 or something. He wanted like a blowjob, and I just looked at him and I was like, do you want to blow a random guy in this club for $30? And he was just like, no. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't either.
Why the fuck would you ask me that? Like, when he said that, my jaw dropped. I'm like, oh my god.
And yeah, that's just like, I guess that's what gets me, is like, if you're gonna offer, like, if you're gonna, like, try and solicit someone who's working in a club and making money, like, at least offer, like, a good rate.
Yeah, that's just not. And there's services for that, guys. You know, that's what escorts are for. We have, I think, airing next week will be, I have an escort being brought on the show, so you guys have lots of questions in regards to rates and stuff like that, so that'll be in a few weeks. But yeah, no, I hear you with all those annoying questions. There are such thing as stupid questions, and those are one of them. So yeah, no, not the question that this person asked, but like questions in the club that guys ask.
Yes. So yeah, I guess it's really interesting to see guys be so open and sexual in that way, and it's like, again, not coming from a place of judgment because I'm making money off of it, but it's interesting to just see, and then to like know if you're talking to a guy, like, I'm like, well, do you have like that side, like, what are you not?
It's kind of interesting. Well, that's sometimes an area where people, because as you said, it's vulnerable, right? Where people can really feel like they can shed those layers, I suppose, because it's, some people feel stigma with that, and you know, people think it's weird. Like, I have my foot slave, and he has this big foot fetish, and he loves like sucking on my toes and all this stuff for money, and he would die if anyone he knew found out about that. But then I remember, like, and this, I'm interviewing him tomorrow. He's gonna be on the show for a bonus episode, but like, it comes from a vulnerable place, and there's like a lot of shame and stigma because it does sound like quote unquote weird, right?
Well, that's like, it's so weird because before dancing, I've never really had any experience with like people interested in feet, and it does seem to be common, and it seems like a common thing for guys to come to a strip club for like, to see feet.
Yeah.
And like, that's totally cool. And I'm like, I feel like out of some of the things people have asked you, like, for the feet, it's probably not like the weirdest, but like, they're usually the like most embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
and that's a very vanilla kink, guys.
Yeah,
it's like, no. But it's great when they pay for that kind of stuff. So yay, thank you in advance. Question number 2, developing your persona. Do you think much about it? What's worked so far? So I guess in becoming Keira Kova.
I did overthink it at first. Like I said, like, I had made that like Instagram like before, like Keira had like a backstory.
Oh, wow.
Like I had like, and I just like made this whole like, you know, like I was like, oh, like, and I made it kind of off of things that were kind of true. So like, I had been to makeup school, so Keira was in makeup school, so I kind of like talk fluidly, but like not be lying. Where I guess that fell apart was like, you get a lot of regulars. And trying to like upkeep that to the same level, but also just like, and I remember I lied about my age at the beginning. Keira was like, I'd been to like around, like, I'd say anywhere between like 21 to 23.
That's how old I thought you were. Yeah.
And like, depending if like we're older, I'd say older, but I would just get in so many situations where guys that were younger with me were like talking to me like they're like teaching me something, or like, you don't know, let me tell you, you're too, and
let me mansplain this for you.
It was just one night of like all conversations like that, and I just like felt like, as I'm trying to like smile and like play down, I just like, it was like popped, and I was just like, I'm 30. And like, I swear, the first guy I told this, like, he didn't believe me. And I was like, so I told him like a year, and I was like, nobody lies about, or I wasn't quite 30, so it was like nobody lies about almost being 30.
Yeah, no.
And then he just like, he was talking to something, and he just like stopped, and he's like, I can't believe it. He's like, let's go for a dance now. He's just like, that's so hot. And I'm like, what? Like, did I just sell a dance because I'm almost 30? And now I'm just open about it because like, and most people like, and I'm not bragging, like, most people are like, oh, I don't believe.
Yeah, no one cares, right?
Yeah, no one really cares. I've seen dancers get turned away for being too young, but I've also had like I remember when I was mixing at my age, one guy like asked, and I could just tell like the way he was looking into my soul, so I like fudged. I was like, it's like 25, and it's like
It's interesting. Before, when you were kind of like making your Instagram page and like, you know, creating your persona of Keira Kova, because you said you were like lying about your age and stuff too. Is that more for a way to protect yourself and protect your identity?
I think at first, yes, and especially because like it was, because something I was doing kind of like privately, and I wasn't being like super open about it. I was like, okay, it's like completely separate, like protect my identity. I guess at some point that kind of like fell off. Like I even posted like on my normal Instagram about the podcast, because it's just, I've noticed like too, and I really want to work towards becoming like a pole instructor.
Oh, great.
And just like I've just noticed in the community, and even coming from fitness, like as I've told people that that's what I'm doing now, like people are just like, I don't know, it's just new times. People are like, oh, okay, like,
yeah,
cool.
Like I discussed this with Luna Luck on her episode too. Like it's being a stripper is like not as edgy anymore, and like so many people are doing it, and it's like normalized now, I guess, a bit more so than, you know, decades ago, right? So it's interesting. Guess we will change this question because you're not under 20, you're not under 24. Costume mistakes. I've bought so many that don't work for me as a baby stripper. Do you think? Oh, do you do this? Do you do this too? Have you done that before? Like bought costumes that you think would be so great on stage, and then you like can't get the fuck out of it, or like it just doesn't work when you're taking it off or whatever, or you've been pretty good.
Minorly, nothing. I haven't like invested in anything that's gone horribly wrong, but I've had things that I'm just like, this isn't gonna work. When you go to start taking it off, and it's not coming out. You're just gonna like go behind the curtain for a minute and unhook everything.
Yeah, you're like, I am tangled in my own lingerie.
Or even just, I always have trouble with this like one style of panties from Model Express. They're supposed to be the unhook, but they never unhook. They're not like the clip kind. They're just like the unhinged ones.
Oh,
and I'm always just like,
and you're just like fumbling here in the corner.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, okay, we'll just do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, totally. What do your parents think of you working at a stripper? Do your parents know?
Well, so my mom does.
Oh, okay.
I haven't spoken to my dad.
Dads are usually weird about that shit.
So my dad doesn't know that I know of. I did tell my mom.
And how was that?
I didn't do it right away, and it wasn't out of like hiding it. We just hadn't spoken a lot, and I didn't really know how to just like throw it out there. And I really wanted it to be like, I thought I'd do it in person, but I had family coming to visit, and I knew that there was going to be like some family time, and like I just was like worried about having to lie on the spot. And so I sent a message to my mom on Facebook.
On Facebook? Oh my god!
I sent it to my sister too, because it was like her side of the family that was coming, so it was like, this might like pertain to you, but also I just wanted to feel like someone was there with me.
Totally,
like,
yeah.
And I watched my mom like the status come up that she'd read it, and she didn't say anything.
Oh wow!
And then my sister was just like, you go, girl. If I had your body, I'd be twirling around a pool too.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay, thank you. And my sister messaged me privately after that, being like, hey, you know, like I have no judgment. And I was like, thank you. And I was just waiting for my mom to say something.
Did she end up saying anything?
I don't think she replied to my Facebook message. But when we were out to lunch with family, she asked if I was working on the weekend, and I said yes. And she was like, at your new job? But just the way she said it, like it wasn't a smile, but it was kind of like a I heard you, I like accepted. And then later, when it was the two of us at a different lunch, she was just like, you know, like I support, I hope you have other goals as well. But she also was like, she used to work at a hotel that had a strip club, so she used to clean up after the strippers. And so she said, she's like, I used to clean after the strippers. She's like, those girls partied hard. And I'm like, it's okay, I'm not
That's cool you had that connection though too though. So that's good, at least she's supporting you in that way. So amazing. Do you think that the stripping environment is better suited to older women who have some experience rather than, you know, being younger? I guess we kind of touched on this earlier.
Yeah, a little bit, yes. I definitely agree. I mean, you could obviously come at it like being older and still it not be the best, healthiest decision. But I do think having like just life experience, something like...
just living.
Yeah, just living, just experience, not even job experience, but just like life experience, emotional experience.
And also just cementing who you are, because I don't know who the fuck I was when I was 20.
And that's the thing, you're becoming who you are at that that age. So if that's what you're surrounded by and you're not taking care of yourself, or you don't have all you're hanging around is strippers, that's, you know, like,
it can be a skewed kind of
like,
you know, tunnel
the
vision
fun things. Like, so I guess that would be like my thinking around it.
Yeah, totally. I definitely agree with some of those points for sure. And I guess this is the last question. How does stripping so young due to women's personality, self-conception, relationships to men? Well, I guess you're as old as I am, so.
Yeah.
I guess everyone thought that you were super young. Well, I guess that's kind of similar to the question we just answered too. Like, it can really change their outlook on life and can affect them in so many different ways, in good and bad. Like, I really feel like you need to have your head screwed on, you know, and really have good foundation and good support, because in this industry, things can go awry pretty quickly, and people think that, you know, that this can be a really great long-term career, and it can be, but that's not the reality for many of us. Right?
Very true.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's my take on it. I don't know about you, but...
Well, yeah, no, I mean, just nothing is guaranteed. Like, your looks aren't guaranteed. The club staying open's never guaranteed. Yep.
So many
like,
closing
it's just
down.
like, you can, you know, I sprained my ankle at one point, and I was like, wow, like, I can't
dance.
work.
Yeah, you can't work. Then you don't have income. So
it's just it is uncertain, but
you just need to think about that shit really carefully if you're starting out young, because I've had a lot of girls come up to me and with other things like camming and stuff too that, you know, started doing that, and they're like, oh, thank you for, you know, your podcast, you know, shed so much light on this. Well, I started camming and stuff, and I'm just like, just be careful. Like, you know, it sounds great on the podcast and stuff too, but you also need to know, like, the pitfalls of that stuff too, so do your research.
I found it actually surprising, like, the number of, like, people I've met that were like, oh, I just always wanted to be a stripper. And like, I guess, like, part of it's, like, I'm still, part of me is jealous that I just got into it, and I feel like I've wasted, like, some of my prime years that I could have been flicking around in a pool.
With jeans like yours, you're gonna be
it's
great.
just like, I can't imagine like walking into that environment without any other like job experience or like
experience in general.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, that's the last question. So, big question will be, where can we find you?
Oh, my Instagram. My dancer Instagram is at Keira Kova, Keira.Kova, or you can find me at miss.vancityfit.
Yay. And you obviously dance in VIP at the Penthouse.
Yes, I do.
Perfect. So we can definitely find you there. Make sure you buy a dance from her, guys. Any last minute things you want to plug?
No, I think that's it for now.
I think that's it for now. So thank you so much, Keira Kova, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So lovely speaking with you today on all these various topics. I'm going to see how I'm going to focus and edit this later, but thank you so much, guys, and thanks for listening to Strip by Sia. We'll catch you guys in again for another cool fucking episode next week. Follow us on Instagram, Strip by Sia, or my personal Sia Steph, and I'll catch you guys later on. Peace.
You're listening to Stripped by Sia, produced and hosted by Steph